Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Temple Sinai. I'm Lynn Weinstein, co-president, along with Betty Adams, and it's our honor to welcome you to Erev Shabbat services this evening. We also want to welcome those folks who are joining us remotely across North America and say hello to them. Remember, it's that camera, folks. Thank you. Before we start tonight's worship, may I remind everyone to silence their cell phones as well as other devices. This evening's Shabbat service will be led by Rabbi Aviva Bass, accompanied by Dr. David McFarlane. Student cantor Dan Geigerman is away for a few days and will be returning to us next week. We look forward to a lovely, warm, musical and prayerful service and hope all of you will join in and worship together in community, and look forward to having a little bit of nosh following the service out in our social hall. Once again, Shabbat Shalom to all.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Can you hear me well? In the back? Okay, good. As I think most of you know, tonight is my last Friday night service that I am leading, but I will be here, God willing, next week as a participant and guest to say farewell at that time. So this is not going to be a tearful farewell. I'm not giving a farewell sermon. It's nothing like that. So it's just Shabbat. We're just going to enjoy Shabbat together. Okay, so let's start, actually, on page 128 with the song, Ma Yafeh Hayom, how wonderful is this day. Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. And now we're ready to bring light into our service, into our sanctuary, as I invite Doreen Solkoff to light the Shabbat candles on pages 120 to 121.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu b'hadlit ner shel Shabbat.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks. And now we continue with the Kiddush, the sanctification of the day over the wine, and it's on page 122 to 123. Vayera vayivoker mashishi, vayachulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzevam, vayachal Elohim bayom hashvi, malachto asher asa, vayishbo ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו, אשר ברא אלוהים, אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. צברי לחיים, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן. לחיים. Manischewitz. I thought we'd do a song we haven't done in a while. We haven't sung much of the Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat in a while, so I thought tonight, why not do Yismechu Hashamayim, which is one of my favorites, on page 131. It's the bottom paragraph of Hebrew, and it's in transliteration. So if you know it, please join me. Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, v'tagel Okay, so now we come to the quintessential song of Kabbalat Shabbat. This really makes Kabbalat Shabbat because this was the song around which all of the Kabbalat Shabbat service rotated when it was put together in the 16th century, pages 138 and 139. And you will note that the author's name is right there in the Hebrew. The first letter of each of the verses spells out the name, which is Shlomo HaLevi. So you can see that there. The Bowie of Shalom doesn't really fit, but that's okay. Up until there, Shlomo HaLevi. So we're not going to do the whole thing. We're just going to do, you thought maybe this time. No, sorry. Verses 1, 2, 5 and 9. Now when we get to verse 9, it is our minhag, our custom to rise and welcome the Shabbat bride or queen into our midst. Page 138, please join me for Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kalai alalai 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 ne Shabbat ne kabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kalai alalai 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 ne Shabbat ne kabela. Shamor v'zahor b'dibor echad hishmiyanu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shem u'letiferet v'litila lecha dodi likrat kalai alalai 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 v'shabbat nekabela. Page 146, we continue with Baruch Hu.
La
On page 149 at the bottom is a very nice interpretive version of the Ma'ariv Aravim. Why don't we read this in the English together? This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. On page 150, please join me in chanting the Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Avta Torah Mitzvot Chukim Umishpatim Otanu Limadeta Al Kein Adonai Eloheinu B'Shachbeinu V'Kumeinu Nasiach B'Chukecha V'Nismach B'Divrei Toratecha U'B'Mitzvotecha Le'olam Va'ed Ki Hem Chayinu Ve'orech Yameinu Ve'orech Yameinu Uvahem Negeh Yomam V'Layla V'avatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. We rise for the Shema, page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please take a seat. Let's join in reading the interpretive translation of the Ve'ahavta on page 155. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. On page 157, we see at the bottom of the page, let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea, the Mi Chamocha. Please join me. Kifada Adonai et Yaakov, Ogelo miad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Before we enter the Tefillah, or Amidah, in just a moment, I'd like to read a reading. If you want to follow along with it, it's on page 185 in your book, but you can keep your hand back where it is because we're going to go back to that for the tefillah. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of the synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. With that in mind, we rise on page 164 with the tefillah. Adonai, sivotai tiftach, ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot, Umevigu Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham V'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atarav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim
הכול. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We take a few moments for silent prayer and meditation. Please be seated when you are finished.
This is a time of our service when we think of those who are in need of healing, healing of body, mind, spirit, or of all three. I have here a list of names that I will be looking at and thinking of as we sing this prayer in a moment. But if you have a name or names of those you are thinking of right now, please say those names aloud now. So for all of those whom we have named and all of those good people around the world who are in need of healing, we sing this, Debbie Friedman's Mishaberach. Sometimes it's difficult to believe that there is light in the world when it seems to be so dark, so filled with evil, terror, pain, and despair. And sometimes it's difficult to see the light at the end of our own tunnels because we feel that we will never emerge from a particularly challenging time in our lives, from grief, from sadness, from fear, or from uncertainty. This week's Torah portion contains a description of a light that is to be kept burning perpetually, the Ner Tamid. This week's portion, Parshat Emor, contains the following command by God in chapter 24, verses 1 to 4. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, "Command the children of Israel, and they shall take to you pure olive oil, crushed for lighting, to kindle the lamps continually." In Hebrew, that's Ner Tamid. Outside the dividing curtain of the testimony in the tent of meeting, Aaron shall set it up before Adonai from evening to morning continually. This shall be a statute for your generations. Upon the pure menorah he shall set up the lamps before Adonai continually. This passage is the origin of the lamp we have in front of our Holy Ark, which is called the Ner Tamid, which we keep lit, or in the case with electricity, on at all times. But what about that lamp within, our internal, spiritual Ner Tamid? The internal flame of our spirit and of our life force, our energy, our will to keep fighting the good fight. How do we keep that lit when the world around us or the circumstances of our life seems to be blowing wind at it and threatening to snuff it out? Sometimes everyone feels disconnected. We may feel far from God, or from spirituality, or just isolated in our world. We may perceive that our Jewish traditions ring hollow, without depth or conviction. And these are times of wrestling with God and with tradition. In fact, the very name for our people and our homeland is derived from wrestling, namely our patriarch Jacob's wrestling with the angelic being through the night, and then becoming renamed Yisrael. Yisrael means the one who wrestles with God. And we are B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel, all these generations later, Jacob's descendants. And we are, as he was, God wrestlers. We are not supposed to believe or to swallow our tradition whole. We could not do so if we tried, because there are truly so many and so divergent opinions that are expressed throughout our texts. Just look at a page of Talmud to see. You can see in the middle there's a Mishnah, and all around the sides are various commentaries, all arguing about these very points. But rather, we are supposed to question, and that's what it teaches us. There is a reason that our Pesach Seder story begins with the 4 questions. We don't just come out and tell the story. We relive the questioning process that leads to responses from our tradition. There is a reason also why the wicked or rebellious child is seated at the Seder table. This child could have been sent away from the table or ignored entirely from our tradition. But this child is there to remind all of us that each of us has what I would call a cynical child part of ourselves. We doubt, we rebel, and we're even angry at God or at the tradition sometimes. Sometimes we can go quite some time without experiencing this part of ourselves. And then there are times we can only hear this voice of the cynic in our heads, leading us to anger or despair. But this is the very part that can also wrestle with God and with Judaism. And that is something that is valued in our tradition. We are meant to struggle and to question. How do we know this? Well, there's a famous story that I love from the Talmud in Tractate Bava Messiah on page 59a to b, that perhaps you've heard. There is an overview of, let me give you an overview of the pertinent points of the story. Basically, the rabbis are arguing over a point of Jewish law about whether or not a particular oven is kosher. It doesn't really matter for our purposes what the point of law is. But Rabbi Eliezer ben Hirkina says, if the law agrees with me, may this carob tree show it. And the tree uproots itself and moves from its spot. The other rabbis scold him, saying that the law is not determined by a carob tree. So Rabbi Eliezer again tries to prove it by saying, if the law is in accordance with my opinion, this stream will prove it. And then the stream flows backwards. So the rabbis say, the law cannot be argued by a stream. So Rabbi Eliezer tries again, saying, if the law agrees with my opinion, may the walls of this Beit Midrash, this study hall, prove it. So the walls of the Beit Midrash begin to fall. And then Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah yells at the walls, scolding them for interfering in the debate of the rabbis. So out of respect for Rabbi Yehoshua, they stop falling, but they do not return upright altogether in respect for Rabbi Eliezer and his argument. Finally, Rabbi Eliezer cries out in frustration, if Jewish law is in accordance with me, heaven will prove it. And then a bat kol, a voice from heaven, is heard saying, why are you opposing the view of Rabbi Eliezer, since Jewish law is always according to his opinion? And then Rabbi Yehoshua responds back to the voice, Lo b'shamayim hi. The Torah is not in heaven. quoting Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 12. In other words, the Torah is now in our hands as Jews to wrestle with. We don't receive law even from heaven. Even this butthole, this divine voice, doesn't decide the law. We must struggle and question and debate. The best part of the story for me is how God reacts after Rabbi Yehoshua says, Lo bashamayim hi. God responds to this point by saying, my children have defeated me. My children have defeated me. Much like the pride a parent may feel over her son besting her in a chess game, God is pleased by the rabbi's arguments. And even a heavenly voice does not take precedence over our ability to argue with the tradition. We are meant to struggle and even to doubt. Judaism is not a religion that tells us that we must believe certain tenets of our tradition to be a good Jew, although many rabbis throughout history have written beliefs that Jews should believe, but nobody has ever been thrown out by not believing one or the other of these lists. So we, as Reformed Jews, believe that even our religious practice may differ from other Jews or from one another, and still be perfectly valid expressions of our Judaism. What we believe most strongly as Reformed Jews are those laws having to do with how we treat one another. Those mitzvot ben adam lechavero, the values about how we interact with others. Ben adam lechavero means literally a man and his friend. So a person, people, between people. And these are perhaps the central point around which liberal Jews focus most of our attention and form the basis of social action, regardless of our beliefs or religious practice about God. If we have doubts about who or what God is, or whether even God exists, we can all agree to certain principles and values of behavior that have been passed down from the Torah through the millennia of our tradition about how we should interact with one another. So, getting back to the Ner Tamid and my original question, how do we deal with the times when our own flame is waning? The Rashi commentary on the words Ner Tamid in our portion is telling. He says, continually from one night to the next. That is, that it was to burn only through the night and then be relit each night by the high priest. In other words, it was not everlasting of its own accord. Every night it needed reigniting by the high priest. One of the amazing facts about fire is that, unlike some of the other elements in our world, when some of it is transferred, none is lost. That is why the shamash, or shamus, lights the other candles in our Chanukiot, our Hanukkah menorahs. It is able to light all the others without diminishing anything of its own brightness. So how do we keep our internal Ner Tamid alight when the winds of the world threaten to blow it out? Today, there is no high priest who can rekindle our Ner Tamid, but we are a kingdom of priests and a holy people. And so we all are capable of kindling and rekindling one another's waning lights by sharing of our own flames with one another. This week, your flame may be burning brightly, but that of your loved one or your neighbor is growing dim. And so you can share of your own flame with her. Next week, you may need your neighbor to share some of his light with you. And so it is with community. That's what community is all about. This Shabbat, may we continue to wrestle with our tradition. May we recognize that questioning and doubt are part and parcel of what it means to be a Jew. And may our lights be rekindled by our shared Shabbat with our family and with our community to share with others in the coming week. Shabbat Shalom. And now we have some announcements about our sponsors by Betty Adams, our co-president.
Shabbat Shalom. Hello? Hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Shabbat Shalom to everyone here in our sanctuary and to those of you watching from home. I am Betty Adams, co-president of Temple Sinai, along with Lynn Weinstein. Thank you, Rabbi Aviva Bass and Dr. David McFarland for tonight's service. And we'd like to thank the following sponsors. Hold on. We would. Our Shabbat services are sponsored by Harriet Stein and Samuel Shapiro in memory of Harriet's husband, Marty Stein, and Samuel's wife, Carol Shapiro. Carol Sklar in memory of her husband, Arnold Sklar. Irving Goldstein in memory of his wife, Helene Goldstein. The following donations to the community food pantries are sponsored by Zena Wagner and family in memory of her father, Sam Adler, and Elaine Lubelski in memory of Lily Lubelski. Oneg sponsorship this week is Andrea and Dr. Joseph Goldberg in honor of Andrea's birthday. Happy birthday. And our Saturday, May 14th, Shabbat Torah study is sponsored by Seema and Ed Greenblatt, thanking you all for the interesting discussions. And we do have interesting discussions at Torah study. You should join us on Zoom at 12:30 every Saturday. Now for some brief announcements. This coming Wednesday, May 18th, the Big Red Bus from One Blood will be in our parking lot from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Those who donate blood will get a $20 e-gift card, a t-shirt, a health check, and most importantly, a good feeling knowing that you've done a real mitzvah. And if you're not eligible to donate, pass the information to someone who might be and have them just show up here from 2 to 7, anytime in between on next Wednesday. You can still get your ads and jewels in for the ad journal. We did extend the deadline. The new deadline is Monday, May 23rd, and that's right around the corner, so don't get too complacent. We have extra forms in our lobby, and remember that there's a special offer for business advertisers. Businesses that place a full-page ad in the directory will also get 3 insertions of an ad in our digital tablet newsletter. And the businesses are actually loving this offer, so you should give your favorite business, doctors, dentists, the opportunity to get this deal. And if you need more information, or if you want them to get more information, here we go with this stuff. 561-276-6161, extension 128. I'm doing this one-handed. Brotherhood's popular Sunday bingo breakfast is back. Sunday, May 22nd at 9:30 a.m. Bagels, lox, salads, and Chef Stan is returning to make the best scrambled eggs you've ever tasted. Dessert and coffee are included, and of course, bingo with $1,000 in prizes. You can sign up tonight or call the Brotherhood hotline. Oops, that's not it. Here it is. Nope, here it is. 561-276-6161, extension 133. And leave a voicemail. Someone will get back to you and help you sign up. And here's something that's just hot off the press. You may have seen an email. We're having a traditional Shabbat dinner, wine, challah, chicken and sides on June 10th at 6 p.m. You can sign up if you're here tonight, or you can call and speak to Judith at 561-276-6161, extension 112. We can take your form tonight, or, again, call and sign up. It's going to be great. And don't forget Saturday morning Shabbat services in the sanctuary and virtually at 10 a.m. and Torah study on Zoom at 12:30. Thank you in advance for contributing to the Tzedakah Bowl before you leave tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, there is just one more announcement, and this is a ritual, religious announcement that we do every night between Pesach and Shavuot, which is the counting of the Omer, right? So we're going to rise to count the Omer, and we'll continue standing as we open the ark directly into the Elenu. So please rise for the Omer count, and the words that we're going to say, the bracha, and with Asher Kitshanu Mitzvotav Yitzivanu al Sfirat HaOmer, okay? And I'll give you a hint what night it is. Last night until sundown tonight was day 27. Okay, so that gives you a hint. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sefirat ha'omer. Today is day 28, which is 4 weeks of the Omer. May it be for good. And a little shameless plug for myself. Tomorrow, please come to Torah study on Zoom because we're going to be discussing counting our days, making every day count, and what it means in our portion that we're reading this week, Parshat Emor, about setting special times in our seasons as Jews. Okay. And with that said, we turn to page 586 as we open the Ark for the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום Please take a seat. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. This week, we recall the yahrzeits, the anniversary of the passing of those people whose names are illuminated on the plaques surrounding the sanctuary. Harry Aaron, Edith Bandel, Samuel K. Brown, Edward J. Bennett, Leo Birkin, Anna Brownstein, Samuel B. Cantor, Harry Cohen, Florence Greenberg, Lester Hershon, Israel Levine, Helen K. Rabin, Moses Rosen, Edith M. Rosenblum, Herman J. Schreiber, Arnold Sklar, Harry Steckler, Seal Winehouse, Louis Weinstein, Miriam Weiss, Rose Werblood, and Morris Wallets. Others recalled at this time: Samuel Adler, Ruth Berkwitt, Jean Eber, Marvin Faust, Betty Galler, Beatrice Galler, Helene Goldstein, Dr. Murray Hurwitz, Arthur Kovnat, Lily Lubelski, Morris Oshry, Rose Schoenberg, Irving Stern, and Louis Weiner. And we recall with sadness those whose deaths are more recent in the Shloshim period, the 30 days since their funerals. Roberta Santa Maria, Nikki Belomo Cohen, Richard Halpern, Evelyn Bernstein, Sam Buchholz Jr., and Simone Tenser. If you are thinking of someone whose name I did not say, please raise your hand so I can call on you to say the name aloud. So for all of those whom we have named and all of those who were murdered in the Shoah, we rise in solidarity with mourners everywhere to recite the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598, 598. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah v'alma divarach Yeruteh v'yamlich malchuteh b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'elam olal me'almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yit hadar, v'yit ale, v'yit halal, shemei dekudesha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran v'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shalom araba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom mimromav, hu ya'asei shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yishrei Tevel, v'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who mourn among us. And let us all say, Amen. Please take a seat as we turn to our closing song, which is Adon Olam, page 625. Asher malach b'terem kol yisir nivra le'ed nasa v'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם השם מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא Shabbat Shalom. Oh, Motzi. Oops. Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Oops. Patei avot, please enjoy our oneg.